Fine. Good morning, all. So here in this particular session, so we'll see how do we create a pivot table using a VBA script. Okay, so we'll see how do we write a script to create a pivot table. Fine. Now, see what I wanted is, so when we talk about a pivot table, so what is a pivot table? So we have this particular data. So we have some kind of employees details. They're in the different locations. They're working for different departments, and they have the salaries. Now I want to do this particular data in the analysis. Like I want to see department wise, okay, what is the total salary expenses? Like we have accounting department, finance departments. I want to see department wise total salary, as well as location wise, I want to see the salaries. I want to see. So that means I want to have the data which is in the rows. I want to have the data which is in columns. At the same time, I want to have some summary data, which is going to be a calculated data. So that means you are converting this particular data, which is flowing one after the other in the form of rows table, so into tabular format, where you're converting the data into row headings and column headings, and you're applying the summary of that. Summary is like, the calculated values. Let us first execute and see how exactly we are getting a pivot table. So then I'll explain you with the code. When I hit on this, on a single click of the button, we can see the whole pivot table is being created. So in this particular pivot table, when you look into it, so the data we have in the rows is nothing but your department. So the department data is flowing in the form of rows, and in the columns, the data which is flowing is your locations. So like this is Bangalore location, okay, Chennai, Delhi, and so on. And apart from that, we can also see here we have the grand total for the department wise. We do also have the grand total for the location wise. And finally, we do also have the overall grand total. So what we understand from this is, see, we are just doing a summary of their salaries, expenses, and thing. So it says in accounting departments in Bangalore, we have a salary expense of 1,000. So in Chennai, we don't have any employees, no salary, nothing. When it comes to Delhi, we have 3,400, Hyderabad 76,000, Mumbai 2,200. Total expenses for the accounting department is 82,650. When I talk about the finance department, so when I talk about the finance department in Bangalore, we have 78,000 expenses, Chennai 70,000, Delhi is 2,000, then say Hyderabad 3,000, say Mumbai 7,000. So total, so finance expenses, irrespective of the city, this is for the individual city. This is for the individual city, and what you're seeing, this 1,56,240 is nothing but the total expenses in the for the finance. Okay, irrespective of the city. So that means we have divided this particular data. In the row, we have the department. In the columns, we have the the cities, and we have the summary value. Here it is the calculation that has been done is a sum. With that, it is also showing the grand totals. Okay, and the overall grand totals. Okay, so I want to do this particular things, and apart from that, you can see in the row headings we have the gender. So where I want to see only the male employees, what is their expenses. Okay, so we're able to do this kind of a filter and needs to get it. So now I want this kind of a chart to be done on a single click, on a single call. I want this to be done. So generally, when you have to create a pivot table, what is that we do? If without a VB script, if I have to do a similar kind of table, I need to first select the data. Then we just get into the insert tab. We go to the pivot table. I just say where you want it. Fine. Then what data you want in the rows? I want it. Departments in the rows. What data you want in the columns? I say I want location in the columns. Then what data you want for summary? I say salary I want to use for summary. So what kind of summary? So we have this particular sum, average, count, or say I want to go to the sum. Fine, we got it. Then what data you want as a report filter, gender, I need to select like this. And then you can see this gets created. Now, and also apart from that, I want to even do the formatting. I want to have a 1,000 separator and all those things. So what we do, again, we go to this particular value field settings, and there I say number format. In the number format, I want to have say number with the 1,000 separator and decimal. Okay, 2 plus decimal, or if not, at least a 1,000 separator. So you can just specify, or we go to the custom and we give it, or you can give it in this also. No? So I want to have a 1,000 separator with no decimal. See, okay, you can see we got with the 1,000 separator, so it becomes more readable. So if I have to manually create a pivot table, see everything is based on the clicks you are getting, but how many clicks we need to do? What are the different features we need to do? So I do everything, but I did not do the formatting. So what the whole output is not readable. Okay, so all those thing problem happens. But in this case, what happens on a single click, all these particular activities are happening together. Okay, so that is where we'll go for the VB script to create this particular pivot table. Okay, so let us see how the script is being written for this particular pivot table. So we just saw on a single click all these things were happening. Okay, and as obviously this is the pivot, so we can just say like how you want this particular layout to be. So we can just design those things on a single this one. It is possible. Now, if I have to manually, if I have to write, let us see how the code is been written for this to do this particular activity. So let me get into the code of this. Yeah. Now this is the code that we have written to create this particular, what I say, a pivot table. So now when you look into this particular pivot table, the first thing here is, so the name of the procedure is create pivot table. That is the name of the procedure. In this first thing, what I'm trying to do is I'm creating two objects here. So one is of a pivot table, another one is of a pivot field. What is pivot table? The whole table is a pivot table, and individual field. So we have it in the rows, and the field that we have it in the columns, and the fields that you use it for the totaling. Okay, these are nothing but the fields. So we call that as the pivot field and the pivot table. So these are the two variables of this particular class. When I say this is a variable of this class, these classes, the pivot table and the pivot field, they contains collection of properties and method with respect to a table, with respect to the fields, what kind of calculations you want to do, what kind of formatting you want to do, where you want to place and all these things. So I have just declared these two variables of this particular type. So it belongs to this particular class, pivot table and the pivot field. And then generally what happens is whenever you're creating a pivot table, so we'll have a source data, and then what happens, you'll have a new sheet where this particular pivot output will be created. Fine. So now first thing is, okay, based on the source data we need to create it. So here I'm just telling in the active workbook dot sheets of employees dot select. That means active workbook is the workbook whatever we have now. So now it says irrespective wherever you are. So for my data, it is in the employee sheet. We're just telling to select the employee sheet. Not select. So that means get the focus irrespective of wherever you are. So get into this. Now, as soon as get the focus, my focus is somewhere over here. Now I want to focus it on this particular data. So that when I say Control A, this particular sheet gets selected. See, if my cursor is here and if I say Control A, the whole workbook gets selected. The whole worksheet gets selected. No, I want only this particular range to be selected. So what I do is this thing is I'll go for the A1 and then say Control A. Okay, so that is a code that has been written here. So that means first I'm selecting the source data. So where I say active workbook dot sheets of employees dot select. That means irrespective in whichever the sheet you are, first let us get the focus on the employee sheet with this name. And there we are telling it to select focus on A1 dot select. That means keep the cursor onto the A1. Then set obj table is equal to sheet1 dot pivot table wizard. Okay. See, first thing is we are selecting the source data where you on which data you want to create. So we are telling that okay, in sheet1 focus on A1 and then invoke the wizard. So sheet1 dot pivot table wizard, this will invoke the wizard. So when I say it invoke the wizard is what? It will do all the activities automatically. So now this pivot table wizard will automatically, when my focus is on A1 and when you call a pivot table, what happens? It adds a new sheet. It selects the data range. So you can see if my cursor is here, so all this contiguous range of data has been selected. Fine. It selects it and adds into the new sheet. All these things will be done by this wizard. The pivot table wizard will do that. So that means it'll select the whole data and it'll add a new sheet. And in that sheet, whatever the name it has to be given, the sequence name, no, sheet 11 is already generated, so it will be sheet 12, and then it is going to create a pivot table layout. Once the pivot table layout is created, next is we say which fields in which place you want to add. Okay, this sheet1.pivot table wizard will just create this particular. We are invoking a pivot table wizard based on this particular selected range of data. Okay, and once it has been created, so this will automatically create a new sheet. It will get the source data, but now here I need to decide which fields are included in which direction. So here you're telling obj table dot pivot fields department. So that means I want to select from this particular actual source data. We have employee number, gender, location, department. So we say, okay, we want to select the department and where you want the departments. Okay, so set obj field we have declared here is equal to obj table dot pivot fields of this one. So from the pivot table, select the field as department, and that should be given as Excel row field. So this has to be a row field, which has to go in the row wise. And that means the orientation we are telling it as Excel row field. So that means the department will be in the row wise. The same way, so you can see here another field, obj field is equal to obj table dot pivot table fields. I'm selecting the field as salary, and I'm selecting that orientation is nothing but your data field. So data field is nothing but a calculation. So we'll have a row field, we'll have a column field, and the data field is this calculation. And before that, we can see here location is considered the Excel column field. That means department is in row, location is in the column, and the data is your salary. Okay, so this will be your department, and this will be your location, and this will be the salary. Fine. Now, whatever the data is there, I want to apply some calculation. So I just say obj field dot function. That means on this particular field, what we have added recent one. So I say what type of calculation it has to do. We have enumerated values, what kind of calculation it has to be done. And I say Excel sum. So on this particular data field, it will apply the summing, average sum or what. So it is going to be sum. Okay, and then I want whatever the data you get, summarized data. So I want to change the number format. So you can see number format is the first 3 digits is 1,000 separator that I have been created, then 2 digits, then 2 digits. So this is the kind of 1,000 separator for the Indian style. If you want to have a decimal, we can specify decimal. If you want to have a mandatory decimal, you can say 00. If it is optional decimal, you can just say hash hash. If there is a decimal, it will display a decimal. So that is this is changing. This is telling what type of calculation. This is changing the number format. And I wanted even the report fields to be given as a gender. So this is again obj field, the pivot field gender. I'm taking this as an Excel page field. So you can see row field is department, column field is location, data field is salary, and the page filter. With that, I have selected the gender. That's it. So let us run this. I'll just select this and let me put a breakpoint and run this. So you can see first thing, it has created 2 variables here. So then it has gone to the active workbook. Irrespective wherever you are, you come to this workbook. You can see it is focused on A1. Then it is going to invoke a pivot table wizard. So that wizard will add a new sheet, and you can see a pivot table layout will be added in that sheet. So then we are telling row field. So row field, what is that you wanted? Department in the row field, the location in the column field, and the salary in the data field. And you can see the data is like this. Okay, we have not changed the number format. So you can see now when I say sum, it is by default it is sum itself. You can give whatever the function you wanted. So you can see the with the decimal separator and the 1,000 separator. Okay, first 3 digits and then 2 digits as a 1,000 separator. Okay. Then gender to be as a page field. You can see the gender as a page field. Done. That's it. Clear?
Yes, sir.